So, Record Store Day is coming up on April 12th, 2025, and as usual, I've got my list of top metal and hard rock vinyl that I might want to buy. So, stick around for those exclusive picks, as well as what might look good for genre fans in both the US and the UK. So, for those who don't know about the event, Record Store Day is held in both April and November at participating record stores. On these days, the record labels put out special releases, whether they're new vinyl variants or represses or even exclusives. Customers line up at the store early, usually with a wish list of their RSD titles, and when the store opens, each one has a different way of organizing who exactly gets which title or titles, usually reliant upon the wish list and your position in line. Sometimes there's also free promotional merchandise, and at bigger stores, you might even get an in-store band appearance. Of course, you should know that not every record store will have every Record Store Day title available. They typically get the titles that they know they can sell, and that can vary from market to market, so definitely keep that in mind when you go. As for titles that metal and hard rock fans might be interested in, I gotta say that the choices this time around are pretty much as good as last year, which was a pretty good year anyways. So, here are the metal and hard rock releases for Record Store Day in April 2025. First up for the US and the UK is Black Sabbath with The Eternal Idol. This is an RSD first release limited to 6,000 copies. So the likeliest reason for this standalone reissue might be that it follows the Anno Domini box set that came out before, and due to licensing, The Eternal Idol was not included in that box set. So if you bought that set and feel like you were missing out on that one absent Tony Martin Sab album, well, here you go. This pressing will be on 140-gram red translucent vinyl. So I've been iffy about getting the box set because I'd rather have OG copies of these albums, and this one as well, but if I get impatient, then I'll probably get both reissues. For now, this one's not an immediate priority. Next up for the US and the UK is Deicide with Once Upon the Cross 30th Anniversary. This is an RSD first release limited to 2,000 copies. So this is a reissue of Deicide's third studio album, originally released in 1995, but now remastered and available in America on its own for the first time on vinyl, since it was also in the 2023 box set from Runout Groove. But for those who didn't want to buy an entire box set to get the first few Deicide albums, picking this one up is a pretty good start. This pressing will be on blue, red, and gray Autobots vinyl, whatever that means. Also, the RSD site lists this at both 2,000 and 2,500 copies, so who knows which one is right. Anyways, this one is a maybe for me, and maybe somewhere down the line, since this is a first release and will be available later on, but definitely not now. Next up for the US and the UK is Dokken with Beast from the East. This is an RSD exclusive release, limited to 1,500 copies. So this is a reissue of Dokken's first live album, originally released in 1988. It's a pretty solid live record and definitely captures this band's strongest era quite well. This 2 LP set is also pressed on green and orange vinyl exclusively for Record Store Day 2025. Anyways, I already own an OG copy of this one, so I don't need to buy the reissue. Next up for the UK is Dokken with Broken Bones. This is a reissue of the band's 2012 album with only Don Dokken as a remaining original member. This one hasn't been in print since 2014 on any format, so if you're really a diehard fan of Dokken, you might want this. Vinyl looks to be blue with black splatter. Anyways, given I checked out with Dokken after the 1980s, this one simply doesn't make my buy list. Next up for the UK is Girl School with Hit and Run Revisited. And as the title suggests, this is a re-recording of their 1981 album Hit and Run, with this revisit originally released in 2011 on vinyl and CD. It's been out of print since its release, so if you missed it then, here's your chance to get a copy of it on the format now. Vinyl color for this one is red. Anyways, I have an OG copy of the original and not really interested in a redo at present. And since it's a UK title and would cost a bit more in shipping to get here, not really motivated to snag this one. But the original album is a classic and is definitely worth having in your collection. Next up for the UK is Morbid Angel with Domination. This is a reissue of Morbid Angel's fourth studio album, this time with a 30-year anniversary release on purple black merge vinyl for RSD. Thing is, Earwig's been selling this album on vinyl on one variant or another for a while now, so unless you love purple, you can get this anytime you want, including waiting in line for it during Record Store Day. As for me, I dig the album, but I can also buy it online whenever. Next up for the US and the UK is Motley Crue is Smokin' in the Boys Room / Home Sweet Home. This is an RSD exclusive release, limited to 2,500 copies. So this was originally a UK single, since the US got these songs on separate singles and not together. Also, there wasn't a picture disc using this photo before, which was otherwise taken from the single's original front jacket. Anyways, this is a picture disc, that's more or less a strike against it for me. And I'm not excited about the album these come from, so this is an unlikely buy for me. Next up for the US and the UK is Motorhead with The Lost Tapes Volume 6 live in Berlin, 1992. This is an RSD exclusive release in an unspecified number of copies. So yet another Motorhead live album in the series, this time recorded in Berlin, Germany, back in 1992. 2 LP set on purple vinyl. And as for buying this one, I have the first 3. I just burned out on buying any more of them because I just don't need an endless supply of Motorhead live albums, of which there are already 16 of them. So yeah, not picking this one up. Next up for the US is Russell Guns with Medusa. This is an RSD first release, limited to 500 copies. So this is the final recording from former Great White vocalist Jack Russell, accompanied by LA Guns guitarist Tracy Guns. As you can imagine, it's a lot of bluesy hard rock with some flashy guitar work. The album originally came out in 2024 on CD, but this is its first time on vinyl. Speaking of which, no vinyl color is specified at the RSD site. As for the album itself, I think if you're a fan of latter-day Great White or of the artists on Frontiers records in general, you'll likely dig this. It's just not for me. Next up for the US is Skin Lab with Bound, Gagged, and Blindfolded. This is an RSD first release, limited to 1,000 copies. So this is a reissue of the band's debut album from 1997, back when they were more of a groove metal outfit and not quite the nu metal band that they later became. This is also a repressing, as it was available on vinyl back when it came out. Vinyl variant this time will be Splatter. So this is basically a Machine Head knockoff band. I'm not exactly crazy about them either, so I'm going to pass on this one. Next up for the US is Sun with Oracle. This is an RSD first release, limited to 1,500 copies. So this is a reissue of their EP from 2007, though calling it an EP is kind of funny considering it's almost 35 minutes long, even if it has 2 very long tracks on it. Kind of like Blood Incantation now. Anyways, this is drone metal, and it's not too bad for what it is, but it's definitely not the most accessible stuff. The RC site states that it'll be on colored vinyl, but doesn't specify which color. Anyways, the EP is fine, but just not grabbing me enough to buy it. Next up for the UK is Wasp with The Last Command. This is the 40th anniversary edition of their second studio album, originally released in 1985. This RSD version was remastered at half speed and will come on yellow and black vinyl. Really great album, but since I already have an OG copy of it, I don't need another, even if it's remastered, so I'm passing on it only because of that. So these are the records I'm likely not getting. However, there are 6 releases that I'm strongly considering and will perhaps pick up. So let's talk about those too. First up for the US is Carcass with Necroticism Descanting the Insalubrious. This is an RSD limited run / regional focus release, limited to 1,000 copies. So yes, this is definitely my favorite Carcass album, though I've yet to get it on the vinyl format for some reason. You can currently buy the black variant with the original artwork at Earache's website, but if I'm going to get a reissue, I'd kind of like to snag this one with the redrawn artwork by Wayne Nichols instead. Great excuse to buy a really great album. Let's just hope I find it, as it is a regional focus release, however. Next for the US is Flotsam and Jetsam with High. This is an RSD limited run / regional focus release, limited to 1,000 copies. So this is a reissue of the band's 6th studio album from 1997 and their return to Metal Blade as well. We haven't really seen a vinyl version of this since 2011, and it does have 4/5 of the original lineup, so this might be one for fans to grab. This one's been remastered for vinyl and is a collaboration between No Life Till Metal and Metal Blade. It'll also be pressed to opaque blue vinyl and will also include the Japanese bonus track Surgery. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for this one, if it's dropped in my region, since it is a limited release. Next up for the US is Scott Ian with Black Knight, Sword of Rage, music from the original Pinball soundtrack. This is an RSD first release, limited to 1,200 copies. So this is a reissue of an album that came out in 2019 in either blue or orange vinyl. The only real change in this repressing is it's now purple marbled vinyl. The album itself is an instrumental collaboration between Scott Ian of Anthrax and Brendan Small of Metalocalypse, with Music featured during gameplay on the Black Knight Sword of Rage pinball machine. Definitely metal and some pretty catchy stuff as well. Enough so that I'd like to pick this one up for my collection. Next for the US and the UK is Judas Priest with Live in Atlanta 82. This is an RSD exclusive release limited to 6,400 copies. So previously only available on CD as part of the 50 Heavy Metal Years of Music box set, this 2-LP live album was recorded at the Omni on December 11th, 1982 during Judas Priest's World Vengeance Tour. Vinyl variant on this one will be solid red. And since I didn't get the original box set, the standalone vinyl release is the perfect opportunity to have this recording. Love this era of the band, so this is definitely my number one want for Record Store Day. Next up for the US and the UK is Saxon with Wheels of Steel 45th Anniversary Edition. This is an RSD limited run / regional focus release, limited to 900 copies. So the draw for this otherwise reissued album is the second LP added to it of live material from the band's appearance at the Donington Monsters of Rock Festival of 1980. I do have the Castle Donington Monsters of Rock live compilation album of bands from that particular show, but it only has one Saxon song on it, so I'd like to have the entire set, which this is, according to setlist.fm, by the way. Also, the studio album proper was remastered back in 2009, and this is that specific remastering. Vinyl variant will be red and blue. So yeah, even though I have an OG copy of this album, I have to have that 2-LP set for that live record. But maybe the remastered studio recording will also sound pretty great as well. Next up for the US is Terrorizer with World Downfall. This is an RSD limited run / regional focus release, limited to 1,000 copies. So like the Carcass record, this too has redrawn artwork by Wayne Nichols, so bit of a theme here. Also, I never bought this one on vinyl, and it too is a classic, so it's likely I'll pick this up for the same reasons. Vinyl for this one will be cool mint color vinyl. Anyways, for those not in the know, Terrorizer started out as what, in retrospect, could be considered a death grind supergroup with members of Morbid Angel, Nausea, and Napalm Death. The record in question came out back in 1989, is fairly revered for its genre, so since I don't have it on vinyl already, why not pick up the fancy artwork redo edition? So a pretty solid selection of metal and hard rock records this time around, and most surprisingly, very few picture discs in our genres. In fact, I only mentioned one. As you might know, I'm not the biggest fan of picture discs, and RSD has been loaded with them in years past, so I'm glad the label seemed to cut down on them this time. Of course, you can feel free to let me know in the comments how you feel about them. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't. Also, quite a few reissues again this year, but that's to be expected, but we did get ones with either alternate covers or additional tracks, so that's something. We also got some death metal in here again, though I'd like to see a whole lot more extreme metal in general represented on the Record Store Day lists in the future. I'm sure quite a few of you would agree with me. And I gotta say, there are too many good records here that are regional focus only, so that might result in a whole lot of disappointed people who can't get them, possibly including me, since 4 of my 6 choices are just that, so I guess we'll just see what happens. Anyways, it's likely that I'll pick up some of these titles if I can, and if I pick up enough of them, I will definitely shoot a follow-up video, so definitely keep an eye out for that later on. Again, Record Store Day will be on April 12th, 2025, and for more info on Record Store Day in general, you can check out the US website at recordstoreday.com, and for the UK at recordstoreday.co.uk. So what did you think of the list? Are you getting some of these on Record Store Day, or maybe you have albums from other genres on the official list that you're interested in? Maybe you'll take your chances in the aftermarket. Some people do that. Let me know that and any other thoughts you have on Record Store Day in general in the comments below. And of course, if this is your first time on my channel, just so you know, my name is Matt. This is the Accusation Network, where each and every week I do videos on metal vinyl collecting, but also classic and modern metal in general. If you like the sound of that and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, it'd be really cool if you did. Also, maybe give this video a like and share out my videos with your friends on social media. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.